It is that time, and so I do want to respect everyone's time and get started on time as well as end on time. We do have a lot to cover today. So, first and foremost, I do just want to thank everyone for coming. This is not an obligatory thing, this is just a professional development thing because of the pandemic and because of the call for school counselors to do their jobs online. And I do just want to show my appreciation towards everyone for coming and joining today. Let's get on started to the nitty gritty. And so I'm really excited about this presentation because, as I always say, Google is my jam, and specifically Google Classroom is my jam. And of course, right when I said Google, my phone lit up. So let me go and tell him to not listen to me right now. And I just turned it off. As school counselors, we have a lot of paperwork, and we are in the beginning of the school year. And so, of course, what is the bane of our existence in the beginning of the school year is schedule changing. And that is a lot of paperwork. And so I just wanted to show everyone how we can use technology to lessen that paperwork and also ease the anxiety of all of our students that we are working with, just so that they know what to expect. They know what all the steps are, and so they are always in contact with you. And without further ado, let's see what that looks like. And what the first slide that I have over here is what to expect from this presentation. I'm just going to quickly go over the logistics of Classroom. I am going to also go over a few software things that we can use on Classroom so that students can receive information, and also so that we can give information to our students. And I am also going to send this document to everyone after this presentation, because I do have a few links in here that I do want to share, but mostly everything is going to be available again in the video, because a lot of this is going to be me showing you how to do things, and also the logic behind why I do this in my school practice, in my school counseling practice. And so, speaking about my school counseling practice, you are seeing me right now representing the Flipped School Counselor, as I am the founder and CEO of the Flipped School Counselor. And my connection with Google and with Google Classroom is that I am a level 2 certified Google educator, and I have done presentations specifically on Google Classroom for ASCA and for CASC. And CASC is the California Association of School Counselors. And I also am a national board candidate for school counseling. And presently, my official job, or my full-time job, is that I am a full-time high school head counselor and dean of students in San Francisco. And so we already went over the big important thing, in that this video is going to be recorded. And like I said, if that is not okay with you, please feel free to send me an email and I will take out your information. And also, I do want to point out this link right over here. And so I'm just going to let that person in. And so, hello, welcome. You came right on time. We are discussing how to submit questions. And so let me go and type this in to the chat so that you all will not have to type this in. And so what this link does is you will be able to just click on it and enter in your questions. And when we are going over questions, I will be able to post them onto your screen so that you can read and see the questions that other people have. So feel free to write as many questions as you need. This session is meant to be informative. So if you have a question, then 9 times out of 10, another person will have the same or a similar question. So feel free to write any questions that you have, and then we definitely will go over them. And most importantly, sit back, relax, and take notes. This is all for you all, and to get information on how you can share material and collect information from your students, and most importantly, so that you can be efficient at your job, so you can focus on connecting emotionally with students and helping them out. And at the end of this session, I do aim that everyone does have a solid understanding of how to use Classroom, and an idea of other software topics that people can use to get the information that they do need from their students, and also connect with their students and their families. I also do aim to have everyone understand the importance of Google Classroom, especially if your school is what we call a Google school, if your school has the MOU with Google. And I also want everyone to have a list of initial items to do in order to start a Google Classroom. And so, why Google Classroom? The reason why I chose to start using Classroom is because at that time, I believe this was 6 or 7 years ago, I was on the leadership team at my school, and our problem of practice that year was, how can we get our students to become independent learners? And I would see all of the time that when students came down looking for their counselor, and myself included, they would just stand at the door staring at it with a look of distraught on their faces, because they needed to ask their counselor, oh, I need to turn in this paper, or, oh, I need to get something from my counselor, I need a signature, something like that, something very short and simple. And I thought, as always, how can I do this better? How can I be available to my students? Or how can I have available these resources to my students so that they do not get so distraught and upset when I have a meeting that I have had every single week at the same time? But of course, kids don't know my schedule like that. And also, with the fact of me being an educator, how can I educate students on how to survive and navigate the world? At my school, I saw a lot of hand holding and of students coming down and really depending a lot on the school counselors for things, when that is not how reality is. And also, I saw it from the 9th grade all the way up to the 12th grade. And especially being a 12th grader, being able to do something as serious as voting, I thought that it was really important to teach students how to look things up when they had a question. And so for me, I just thought, what can I do as a school counselor to help them out with that? And then that's where the use of Google Classroom came, because the students can, when they have a question, they can just go and look up what the answer is. And so, oops. And also, and this is what we're going to talk about a little bit later, is that on Classroom, it is a means to store material, to store resources. And also there is a means to distribute paperwork and track who has turned things in and who has not. So this is really good in regards to checklists. At the first school that I was at, we had a quarterly checklist for all of our students from 9th grade all the way through 12th grade. And we were using Power School at that time. And so I actually did in Power School what I have done in Google Classroom, where I would just write down the task that a student needed to do. At that time, it was something like create a CSU mentor account and send me what your username and password is. You know, something like that for a ninth grader, all the way up to complete your letter of recommendation brag sheet. You know, so whatever is grade appropriate, that was on the checklist for the student, and then the student would turn it in, and then I would manually check it off. But for here, we can do the same thing and then have the electronic check off. And also, when the student does not do something, they would be able to have that electronic check off. And another plus for Classroom is that a lot of school districts have a memorandum of understanding with Google, and so therefore they will not share information of your students. And so I'm sorry, I'm just going to go and put everyone on mute just so that people can hear. And so if you are muted, that is why. It's not that I don't want to hear you talking. I do, but just for later on when we are in the question section. And for the MOU, it does protect both students and counselors, because when we use anything on Google, we do have to log in with our district given usernames, and also the students have district given usernames and passwords. And so everything is password protected. All right. And so without further ado, what does it actually look like? And what specifically do I do, or how do I use Google Classroom as a school counselor? What I find being very important is that you can collect paperwork, and also, just like with teachers, you can use a rubric so that your students understand and know where they stand in their paperwork submission. And so in general, I do use this rubric of 0 means missing or non-applicable, and 1 means submitted late, and 2 means that it was submitted early or on time. So that is pretty self-explanatory, but in regards to the 0 part, that is something that you do need to inform your students that sometimes 0 is not necessarily a bad thing. For example, when you are collecting, let's say collecting paperwork for a city college or something like that, that is only applicable to certain students who are going to a city college level school after graduation. And so that is something that I do recommend letting students know, that 0 is going to be a missing / not applicable, because, you know, for that example, some students may be already going to a 4-year college, so they may not need certain things for the city college level. And then we have more examples of the type of assignments that you can do on Classroom. And also, something that is used more likely than not is that we are we are posting announcements and reminders to Google Classroom. A good thing about Classroom is that it does connect with Calendar, so that you can go and set the calendar for your classroom to remind students about an event that's coming up a week or 2 weeks in advance. Or if you want to be kind of more strategic, maybe a day or 2 before, just so that you can remind students about deadlines of when certain scholarship applications are available, or reminding them about the November 30th application, or something like that. And then definitely we can post resources. And so planning is extremely important in developing your classroom. And so not only do you need to plan with your fellow counselors, if you are lucky enough to have fellow counselors, but you do want to include your administration on these planning meetings as well. And so when you are planning with your team, it is important to know when to post, who will post, and how to post, so that all posts do look the same, even though there are multiple people doing the posting. And in the classrooms, you can have additional faculty members, which typically are the school counselors. However, they can be, like, for example, at my school presently, we have our counselors. We also have all of our administrators, and we have our representative for our program that supports African American students, and we also have representatives from our college center and from our after school program and from our wellness program. So all of them are able to scan and post flyers and or post invitations to students so that they can connect with them and so that they can give students that information, and all of that does not need to come specifically from the school counselor. Okay, and so without further ado, we are going to go and look to see what a classroom does look like. And so here it is. Right now we are on the Classwork section. When you do log into Classroom, you are immediately going to be taken to the stream. And so the stream just literally is a summary of everything that has happened. So it doesn't really have quite usable information. However, the meat and potatoes is in Classwork. So in Classwork, you are going to see the folders and what Google calls them are topics. And so I do recommend that everyone have a folder for resources, and then everything else is just whatever you and your school chooses to do. For example, I just gave a few examples, but in the present classrooms that we have at my school, we have about 25 folders, and those are all things from scholarships, from financial aid, college planning, graduation preparation, and many more. But whatever topics that you all find to be applicable, I would definitely recommend creating them. And then how we see this here, this does look a little bit different in that I am in the teacher view. So I see all of the folders on both the left side as well as in the middle, but the kids are only going to see the folders that have something in there. So for example, this right here that says class meetings, it says it right over here. Students can only see the topics with published posts. So the students in this classroom will not see the class meetings nor the graduation preparation, but they will see everything else because it does have an actual assignment in there. And in regards to the general resources, that is something that I would recommend putting in there as a place for kids, of course, literally to get materials that they are going to need throughout the rest of the year. And so this is things like a welcome letter from you, just describing who you are, what you like, just to humanize you and to show the kids that you, just like them, you like the Golden State Warriors, or just like them, you watched Beyonce's Black is King, something like that. You can put that in there. But on a more serious topic, we have space here to write what the expectations are for your students per each year. And so for us, we call this a college planning calendar. And what this is it breaks down the expectations for each student depending on which grade and what they're going to be doing. So we have September, October, November, all the way through the rest of the year. And these are recommendations that we do give the students to do. Some are things that we are going to ask of them, and others are just our recommendations for them to do. When we were back in our brick and mortar school, I would pull the students down by homeroom and bring them to the computer lab. So every student was looking at a computer, and they did go and log in to this Google Classroom. And then just like in this presentation, I went over this with them. I went over how to look at the folders. I went over how to find assignments. And then I also I also went over this particular document for each grade. And what I found was that this does help out the students in regards to lowering their anxiety, because the students feel like they need to do everything all at once, and they can't really see how they're going to get through the year. So this does help our seniors in regards to lowering anxiety just a little bit, just because they finally know what to expect. And when they do reach that benchmark or that milestone, then they're going to say, okay, so I'm here, I'm right on time, I'm where I'm at. I do have more things to do. However, I'm okay. And but in regards to what oh, so this is another good thing to know. I also do have videos on how to do things, because one, just to show how, or just to kind of give an example of how I chose to use Google Classroom to kind of um, duplicate myself and always be available. I do a lot of videos, and I have added a lot of videos onto Classroom showing kids how to do things. So this is an example of how to add their email to their phone, because at my school, I am a Title I school. However, 90% of kids, and that's a very low example, but at least 90% of them have a cell phone. And when they are in the school building, they connect to the Wi-Fi even if their cell phone is not active. And so they are able to use their cell phone, and they do check their emails on their cell phones. And so knowing that Google Classroom does send emails whenever I make a post, I did want to make sure that that all my kids, whether they had an iPhone or an Android, were able to connect to Classroom and also to their email. And so in regards to what Google Classroom looks like for virtual learning, the thing that I think of first is schedule changes. And so that is one thing that I do want to go over today and show you today on what that would look like. And so this is something that us as a counseling department do have on our Google Classroom. And how this is that first it shows the instructions of the actual assignment, and then the students can click on view material to open up the assignment. And so they will see literally all of the instructions, and in theory, they're going to read all of the instructions very thoroughly, and then they will be able to then make a determination of what to do next. And so for schedule changes specifically, let's just say we have a kid who wants to make a schedule change. They're going to read this, and they are going to, per the instruction, they're going to they're going to look here to see what the protocol is for the schedule changes. And then we do have all of these protocols for our schedule changes, just because we have 4 counselors, and they can only do so much at a particular time. And for our school, it is our school's protocol to prioritize the schedule changes, and we explain to them what they are and when we are going to be doing things. And so we also have, and so the student can click on that to see what that is. And then when the student says, okay, I read this protocol, I know that my schedule change is valid, and so I am going to click here so that I can go and submit my schedule change. And so when the student does that, they just click on that link. Then they can go and fill out this form. And so I'm just going to write, anything over here, and then say that that Dwayne The Rock Johnson is my counselor, and I'm going to write his email address and say I am a 10th grader. and then go on to the next. And of course, when you have this together, you are going to have hundreds of kids, so it's not going to be that fast, but or as quickly as I did it, but it will add maybe about 1 more second, because when you have a drop down menu, you can just start typing and then it'll easily find the kid. And so let's say I'm Luna Lovegood, and then the student just writes down whichever class that they want to drop. And so chemistry, and why drop in class? I don't like the teacher, and replacement class is going to be art. And is this a pathway change? So I added this question because my school specifically is a pathway school. And so what that means is that and we have 4 pathways. Some schools have more, some schools have less. And so what that means is that it's kind of like a major for high school. And so we have, pathways for journalism, for social justice, and another for debate, and then we have another one for law. And so Luna can go select that, and then she will select submit, and then immediately her information is going to come here. And so this is the schedule change request form, and then this information is listed here. And so we have the address, the email address, the counselor, the grade, and all of the student information. So the counselor can go in to this document, and then they'll say, okay, I see that the student is selecting, has submitted a request to change your schedule. Let me go look to see if this is valid. Oh, it's just because they just don't want to take the class. Sorry, unfortunately, that's not something that I can do. Or if it was, oh, I took this class already, so I don't want to take it again because I don't need to take it again, as I passed it with an A, then Dwayne can say, okay, apologies for putting you into the same class as last year. Let me go and change you. And then when everything is complete, then he can just click over here and note that everything was done, and then go on to the next person. And so let me just refresh this. Okay. And so that was just one example of how we can do what we did back in the brick and mortar school, how we can do that online. And so another great use of Classroom is information collection. And one thing that I do is I use, or I guess similar to what we just did with the class change request, is I use a Google form to collect information from students. And also, one thing that is different from the example that we gave is that we can make an assignment for students, and also check them off and have them literally submit the assignment by clicking on a button that says submit. And so how we do that is we go to create, and then we can select whatever we are doing. So an assignment is when we want a student to turn in a paper to us. Like for the example that I'm going to give in a minute is for the letter of recommendation brag sheets. So that is an assignment. If it was a quiz assignment, that is something that we do for our ninth graders and for our transfer students, because we do have them look at a video that goes over the graduation requirements, and then they take a test on that afterwards. So that would be for a quiz. And a question is just a very quick little check-in. We ask like 1 to 3 questions tops of like, how are you? What did you do over the summer? Something like that. That is for question. And but we do mostly use material, because material is when we post flyers or when we say, hey, November is coming up. That's when applications are going to be due. Connect with us so we can make sure that you are on track for your application. And then topic, that's these guys over here. And so when we let me scroll down over here. For our letter of recommendation sheet, that is an assignment that, let me go back over here. That is an assignment that the students do need to turn in. And from the counselor perspective, we are going to see the number of students who have received that assignment. And then we also have the number of students who turned it in and the number of assignments that have been graded. And so when you have about 400 or 500 or more students, then you are able to you're able to see higher numbers, and you're also able to just click on certain things to see who turned it in and who did not. So this example shows that that Teyanna Nicole turned it in, and also the counselor looked at it and gave feedback by saying great job. And then we are also waiting for Blaze to enter in his information. And also, there's one other aspect to assignment, but I am going to use another. I'm going to use another assignment to show that, because I only have one thing assigned here in this one. But for transcripts, we have more. And so for electronic transcripts, we do use the assignment function. But what is different is that for this particular situation, we have 2 students who have been assigned this. And of course, that's not going to happen for you all. You're probably going to have at least 100 kids assigned this. But this is very very helpful for school counselors, because we track all of the grades of our students, and we are responsible for making sure that they do graduate and graduate on time specifically. And so the beauty in this is that when we do make an assignment, all of the students, let me actually go and show you what this looks like. So when we do make the assignment, we go and put in the information. So we have the title, we have the instructions over here, and then we have the actual transcript review and videos on describing how to read a transcript and what the student should expect, and also a link for how a student can request their transcript or a copy of their transcript. So this entire assignment just has to deal with transcripts. The beauty in it is that we can do a template for the transcript review, and then tell Google Classroom to make a copy for each student. And then, of course, we have a rubric, but in this particular case, it is not used, because a student does not need to turn in their transcript. A student, just gets their transcript reviewed to them with the school counselor. So this is why there is no rubric associated. But the topic is the college application process. And so from the counselor point of view, after we have created the assignment, then we can go and open it up, and then the counselor can use it. So the thing about this is that, like I mentioned before, everything is password protected, and also only the student can only see their own information. So Johnny, even though Johnny's in the has the same caseload, or excuse me, Johnny's in the same caseload as his best friend, he cannot go and look over here and see all of this information and go through all of the transcripts of the students. Johnny only sees his information. So for here, just like Teyanna and Nicole can only see her transcript review, but the counselor sees everyone's transcript review, and the counselor is able to just go click on the next button and see the next student and see the the information of that next student. And when the counselor is doing a transcript review, or when the counselor exports that information and is updating the transcript review, he or she can just go pull up the account just like I did, and pull up the assignment, and then just click on it to add new information. So let's say I am Blaze's counselor. So I'm just going to go and put in his information, Sabini, and then fill out everything else. And then for this thing in particular, I am able to go and input his grades. And the great thing about it is that he will be able to see all of this information immediately. And so when the students come to you and say, oh, I don't remember what grade I got, however many years ago, can you look that up? You can say, I can look that up, but also you can look that up as well. Just go onto your Google Classroom under transcript, and you'll be able to see that information. So this goes back again to what the point of using Google Classroom was, and it was to help our students to become independent learners, and to look up questions for themselves and to get those answers for themselves. Let me just go get out of that. Oops, now. Oops. Okay, and then lastly, Google Classroom can be used for checking up on students and making sure that they're on task with what they need to do in regards to a checklist. And when we put that together, we of course do not do that individually for each student. We can just go to grades. And then for us, we are going to see all of the grades, and we are going to be able to see, okay, we see that Blaze did not turn in this document, but we can see that Teyanna turned in this document. And how I know that is because it has a 2 out of 2. And this does say not turned in. That's just because I was putting in information just to show everyone what it does look like when you do go and grade a document. And one other great thing about this is that we can go and basically copy this information and paste it into a Google Sheet, and use that as a mail merge to let the students know where they are. So we can just say, tell the mail merge just to say when student A has a 2, that means that everything is complete. When student A has a 0 or a missing, then that means that their document or their assignment is incomplete and that they need to see the counselor. And so this is just a way for school counselors to use technology and to use Google Classroom specifically, so that we can ensure that our students know where they are for their folder or for their college application process, and also have a means to always contact us, because on the student view, they are always able to, under every assignment, they can go and make what's called make private. We don't have it here, but they can go and make private comments to the school counselor, so that only the school counselor sees it, and then the school counselor will be able to respond to the students. And so I'm going to stop right there. I know I just gave you all a lot of information, and so I'm going to stop right there to see if we have any questions. And I don't see any written down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute everyone. And if you have any questions, then you can just speak them. Or actually, I cannot unmute anyone. So you can unmute yourselves if you have any question or any feedback.
I guess a question that I have is how long did it take, or how easy is it for students to navigate the portal? Especially, I'm thinking like the student population that I will be working with, predominantly like English is not their first language. So how can I make it more accessible for them, or just support them with that?
I'm glad you asked that. What we did at first, I did not know. I did not know this little trick of just changing the language to whatever their language is, and so we actually had them come into the counseling office, and we tried to help them out with like every single aspect. And then we got them connected to a paraprofessional who spoke their language, and then that was that person who was designated to them to kind of explain things to them. And so that wasn't ideal, but that was the best that we can do. And so I'm trying to remember this. I have the directions written down somewhere, but there is a way for us to go to settings, and then you know what? That's something I'm going to have to look up and get back to you later. But there is a way that we can just go into settings and change the language to whatever language that the student speaks, and then everything that is not uploaded from the person individually will be changed into whichever language. So for us, we have two major languages other than English. That is Chinese and Spanish, and so we were able to convert those accounts from English to that other language, and that worked out pretty well for us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And oops, let me go right back over here because I see that we have a question. And the question is, can students change their own grades? And I think that that's a great question. In theory, I should say they can. But what I have done was I just made it so that they cannot. And oops, let me go back to that. Oh, this is the same. And so when you as a counselor have the transcript review up, I'm only using this Sheets document as an example because this is a Sheets document, and so is the transcript. The transcript review is a Sheets document as well. When all the students get their transcript review, they have editing rights. And so the thing that I do recommend is that when the school counselor is inputting the information, that they just go to the share function and then just change the permission so that only you can make any changes, but that the student can view the document. And so after you click on share, then you just go down over here to change. And then the student is actually up here on top because the student would be the person that the sole person that the document is shared with. And then you would be able to go right over here and it would be on editor, but you would just change it to viewer so that they're not able to make any changes. And then we have Can a student request a transcript from home? The student can request a transcript from anywhere they are on an electronic device. So the transcript review is a Google form. And so when they go and they click on this, they can be on a tablet, they can be on a computer, they can be on their cell phone, they can be on anything. And then just because this is on an internet platform, and so this can be accessed from anywhere that there is an internet connection, and then the student will be able to input their information, and then the school counselor will be able to get it, and they will see, they'll just see the information from the kid, and they'll be able to respond. Okay. And so, congratulations, you have made it. That is pretty much what we have for today. However, I have one last piece of information for you. So these are the steps in creating a classroom. It's very simple and very straightforward. You just go on to classroom.google.com and you log in with your school email and credentials. Click that you are a teacher. So there are two options. There's going to be one option to say that you are a student, one option to say that you are a teacher. So you click teacher, and then you click add and create the class, and then you have created the class. Then they're just going to ask you things like, what is the name of your class? When do you teach? What's your room number? Things like that. But as counselors, we can write our office hours, or we can just keep it blank. What I have done is I call it the counseling corner, and then for I believe for the period, I write class of whatever, and then and then I just go on from there, and then I just add the teachers and the students. And in doing so, that is pretty streamlined. There is a place, let me show you, that under people, there is teachers, and then there are students. So the teachers, you just go click on the plus button, and then you can either type in the email address to the other teachers or counselors or whoever that you want to add, or you can copy and paste their information. And definitely, I recommend copying and pasting the information for the students. You follow the exact same protocol, and click on the add button. And what I do is I go to our students information center, and then I export all of the students' emails, and that goes on to a spreadsheet, whether it is Excel or if it's Sheets. And then I just copy that, and then I paste it over here and click enter, then invite, and then it'll send all of the, like the 500 emails out all at once, and it will say that you have invited those students. So the students will receive an email individually saying Ms. Walker is requesting that you be added on to her class of whatever Google Classroom, and then they say, okay, I will add myself onto that. And then the students will be here, and then they will be able to see everything. And that is pretty much it. So I do want to give time and space for any other questions, any clarifications. I mean, this is on anything, because I do acknowledge that I did, kind of dump a lot of information on you. And so I just want to see if you want me to go over anything again, or just let me know that you are ready to go and create your classroom and hit the ground moving.
how long did it take you to just get so comfortable with Google Classroom?
It took me a summer to have a solid foot on it. But that was an intense summer. So then this was something that I did all on my own. I went and I just recently found out there are some books on Google Classroom, but I didn't read any books. I just got the idea from my colleague, and then I watched YouTube videos on how to do it, and then I just learned by doing. I made mistakes on the way, specifically in regards to integrating the other software into Classroom. But with that, I told the kids that that this is something new to me, but not new to them, because the kids had been using Google Classroom in their with their teachers. But it took me that first summer to kind of learn what I wanted to do. And then after that first year, I felt really comfortable with doing it. But I did make mistakes, and I did just have to admit to say, you know what, I don't know that, but I'm going to look that up, and then I'm going to get back to you. And the kids were fine with that. But yeah, to be completely honest, it is a lot in the beginning, specifically for the transcript reviews. But for everything else, there is not that much back work to do. You just have to like copy and paste links. But for the transcript review, that was a lot. But transcripts are a lot in and of themselves. Just because you do have to do each student individually, and I had 450 of them. And so I just felt like, since I'm physically carrying home 450 files, during the Christmas break and over a summer break, if I can have time for that, I can have time to do this once and then be able to just add to it each and every year. And so now I am very comfortable with it, and I do want to share my comfort with my colleagues as well as my kids, just because now, especially now during the pandemic, we are going to a more virtual and more digital world. And so our kids are on YouTube all of the time. And so my thing is, if you can learn how to go to YouTube, you can learn how to use Google Classroom, because they're both owned by the same company. They're the same thing. So, I just want our kids to be able to compete to compete in the world and with their skills. And I see the kids all the time on their cell phones. If they can, on TikTok and on Instagram and so on and so forth. So they have that ability to do digital. They just need to learn how to do it, and to learn how to do it in a professional way. And they took pretty well to this.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. So does anyone have anything else? Because we are about done. And so I do want to give everyone time and space to just give some feedback. And I'm going to put this in the chat so that you don't have to type this out. And so this is just where you can, and of course I didn't type it out correctly. So this is just where I do ask that you give feedback in regards to what you learned, anything that was confusing. There we go. Or anything that was confusing, or what you want more of. And then I will use this feedback for my own personal use, just so that I can go back, watch this video, see how I can improve, what I need to do over again, because it did go well. And then I'm also going to put into the chat a link to for you all to fill out so you can get a certificate of attendance and use for professional development hours.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Have a
Okay,
beautiful
okay, bye-bye.
day. Bye.